So here we are in Visual Studio, and we've got a simple HTML file with a few CSS files. Now, LESS itself is not going to process or deal with CSS files that aren't in your domain, that aren't things that are under your control. So these first two CSS files that are actually style sheets to get some open source fonts from the Google APIs domain, we're going to leave alone. So we can mix CSS with LESS on the same page, not a problem. To get started with using LESS in the client, we can go ahead and simply rename our CSS file here in the Solution Explorer as a LESS file. Visual Studio is going to say, do you want to change it? And we do. And you'll notice that it loses its icon because it doesn't know exactly what to do with this LESS file. Because we've changed it here to LESS, we're going to change it here in our form also to LESS. Now, so far, we're just pulling down that LESS file, but we're really we're not telling the browser that it knows what to do with a LESS file. So in order to do that, we're going to actually need the JavaScript file from the lesscss.org website. I've got it cached locally on my desktop. And it's just called less.js, but in this case there's version information. Less 121 is the version I'm using, and this is a minimized version for you to use in your website. And I'm just going to go ahead and drag and drop it so that we can bring it into our head. You could put this script anywhere on the page where you want this to be processed, but it should be after all spreadsheets have been declared. If it happens before, it may not find the spreadsheet files that you want it to process. By just including this, it's going to actually look through the DOM for links of the right type that are LESS files. Now, because LESS aren't necessarily served as .less files, that's not actually how it finds these links. It finds them by looking at a certain rel attribute. So we have to change this to be spreadsheet/less for this to actually work. What the browser is going to do is pull down this LESS file, but not really do anything with it because it doesn't know that it's CSS. And then the script is going to do the fix-ups for us. Let's go ahead and run it now that we've done this. Now, note we've changed the file to a my.less file, but we haven't actually done any less in there. So this should still be treated as a perfectly valid CSS. And we can tell it is because we're getting our appropriate design. If we close this and change and remove this less part of it and run it, our CSS is missing. And the reason for this is the server, when it serves up these LESS files, may or may not know what the content type is. Because in this case, it doesn't know what the content type is. It's delivering them as plain text, so the browser doesn't expect that it's a valid CSS file. We don't care whether it's being treated by the browser as CSS because the JavaScript file on the client is doing that work for us. Let's put the LESS back there. And let's go ahead and just add a quick line of actual processing code so we can see it actually work. I'm going to open up our my.less file, and this worked, remember, because every CSS file is also valid LESS. LESS looks and feels like CSS. So let's just use a simple variable. The variable syntax, which we'll cover in a lot more detail in a few minutes in this video, it's just an @, the name of a variable, colon, and then some value. And I'm going to just call it main color. And I'm just going to say pink, since it'll be nice and obvious that this is the color we're using. Once we've declared one of these variables, we can use them anywhere we want. And I'll just replace our body tag with this main color. So the LESS processor is going to take that main color pink and just replace it anywhere it is in the file. It is just pre-processing this file to eventually deliver valid CSS. Let's go ahead and save this. And let's go ahead and just run this again in the browser. We'll see it's done its job. It's actually replaced this CSS in the browser with that pink value. And if we look at using the debugger, our HTML body tag, we can see that the background is actually pink. It actually replaced that specific value in the body style with that value we had put in the LESS file. We'll see more how variables work in a couple of minutes. And that's how you can use LESS directly from the client without changing the server whatsoever.